Thank you, Mech Warriors, and welcome to a bit of a trailer breakdown. The heavy metal trailer dropped earlier this morning, and I kind of wanted to go through it, sort of look at some of the interesting information that actually came out in the trailer, and then look at the mechs that actually came out with the game. You'll notice Mech Warrior Online currently in the background, mainly because, well, that has almost every single mech that we're actually going to be looking at, so that's going to be a little bit of fun. So, stick with us. We're going to be pausing a lot, we're going to be going through this, and hopefully we'll have a bit of a good time. So, let us begin the trailer. And as you can see, obviously, over here in the corners, we can already see the mechs. We have off over here a Phoenix Hawk, a Phoenix Hawk, a Phoenix Hawk, and a Phoenix Hawk. So we're looking at 4 Phoenix Hawks already. Way back here in the corner, I don't think that's a Phoenix Hawk, but I do think that is some kind of mech, but it doesn't matter because we'll be seeing all the mechs as we come up. So this little computer panel here is going to give us all kinds of information. Of course, we have everybody's favorite, the full-on Annihilator, 100-ton mech, brought back more or less with the Wolf Dragoons from Clan Space. If you didn't realize that the Wolf Dragoons came from Clan Space, I'm sorry to have spoiled that from you, but it's true. They brought in an old Star League era design that was basically the next generation heavy assault that never actually got built in the Inner Sphere, and so when they showed up with Annihilators, everyone kind of freaked. But yeah, 100-ton assault mech, this thing is bad ass, to put it mildly. That's only a month away. So over here we have another Phoenix Hawk, and then an Archer. Archer's very popular command mechs. We'll talk a lot more about these mechs. Jamie Wolf is an Archer pilot, which makes a lot of sense given the Flashpoint that they've hinted that's coming to us. But yeah, Archer, 65, 70 ton. We'll look at it later, but it's a heavy mech equipped with 4 medium lasers and twin LRM-20s. And of course, Yang in the bottom right there. Yang, playable character. Here, of course, we have a Vulcan. Vulcans are 40-ton medium mechs, kind of designed as infantry hunters. That's an AC2 on his on sort of like the corner shoulder right around here. But we'll, again, talk more about it. I just kind of want to point them out as they come up in case you missed them at all. After all, it is a bit of a trailer breakdown. The total tonnage of what's actually being dropped. Okay, nice beauty shot. We have everybody's favoritely gorgeous Rifleman right here, and this Rifleman apparently looks like it's equipped with, oh no, okay, I thought for a second these had additional barrels, but they don't. So yeah, standard Rifleman. Then you've also got a Flea. This is a 20-ton, Rifleman 60-ton heavy mech. Flea is a 20-ton light mech, and an Assassin over here. This is a 45-ton medium mech. Really quick, not so quick, but really cool. Also has sort of an advanced radar dish on the top. Okay, this screen is bloody everything. This tells us absolutely everything that's actually going into this game at this point. And it's, well, there's one other thing that it's actually missing, but we'll come back to this screen is amazing. So, I don't know what this Coil is. Coil lasers, someone in our Discord had mentioned that they believed that these weapons, Coil weapons were normally melee weapons. The way it's been described at every single news site that I've seen, apparently the Coil laser, or whatever it's actually going to be, is a weapon that's going to get even stronger the further distance you are actually from the target. So, that'll be an interesting addition to the game, I suppose, sort of pushing you away from generating only close-range SRM-6 AC-20 mechs and sort of complementing a little bit in the whole Gauss rifle headshot play. But hey, I'd never seen this thing. I did look it up in Insarna, and maybe I just missed it because I spelled something wrong, but I didn't find any Coil lasers. But yeah, they will get stronger as they go further. Snub-nosed PPC. This is out of timeline to the max. Like, this is gonna get interesting. So, some of the PPCs are actually proper, lost technology. They were originally invented by the Star League. They get rediscovered by the Draconis Combine in the 30s, 60s. So the fact that we're seeing snub-nosed PPCs show up is rather hilarious, actually. This technology is kind of way out of timeline, but it looks like we're going to be fighting over some form of Brian Cash or some sort of Castle Brian, because all of this gear is just insane. Well, most of it is insane. But yeah, snub-nosed PPCs, basically in tabletop, a snub-nosed PPC has a short range equivalent to a medium laser's maximum range. And within that short range, it deals full damage, which is hilariously high. It's a full-on PPC. It weighs a ton less than a PPC. So basically consider it your PPC sawed-off shotgun. I don't know if they're going to neuter this thing with a super high heat value, but this is basically your close-range brawling PPC. It's really cool. I really like that. Happy to have it included in the game. However, it does feel really out of timeline, but that's apparently not a problem because, again, all of this tech is mostly lost tech. Well, not all of it. I mean, you still have things like Tag and Arc Beacon, and that's going to be showing up relatively soon. But yeah, we're definitely looking at some kind of lost tech cache for the Flashpoint. By the way, there's going to be a Flashpoint focusing on the Wolf Dragoons and Natasha Kerensky. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So yeah, Snubnose PPC, brawling PPC, you get up close and personal with that sucker, and you punch them in the face with it. It does have damage drop off in tabletop. The moment you get to medium and longer ranges, it deals less and less damage, so there is that to work for. But if you're going to be operating from within medium laser range, Snubnose PPC, you really can't go wrong with it. Even at longer ranges, yeah, it drops off in damage, but you can still do something so long as you can take care of the heat. But an interesting weapon, especially given that PPCs generate a sensor impaired result, or is that rogue tech only? Well, we'll figure it out anyway. The next 4 weapons on the list are absolutely ridiculous to me. These are UAC 2s, 5s, 10s, and 20s. What's a UAC? Ultra Autocannon. What the heck is an Ultra Autocannon? If you're totally new to this whole thing, an Ultra Autocannon is an autocannon that gets to shoot twice. Now, in tabletop, if you decide to fire your Ultra Autocannon the second time, you have a chance of jamming the gun, and it cannot be unjammed for the rest of the game, which is a bit of a downside. In Rogue Tech, the gun can jam, however, it can unjam as if it were a rotary autocannon, which one of the advantages of rotary autocannons is you can attempt to clear a jam, something UX couldn't do. I don't know how they're going to implement it with harebrained schemes. They could go in with the full jam rules, where the moment that thing stops working, it stops working for the rest of the thing. Sort of a high risk, high reward. It's not a high risk, it's like if you rolled a 2 on a 2d6, it would jam or something like that. So Ultra Autocannons, they basically get to double tap. For the UAC 2 and 5, this is actually going to be gigantic because you have to remember that the weapons in BattleTech are scaled up by about a factor of 5. So normally a medium laser does 5 damage. Well, in Harebrained Schemes BattleTech, it deals 25 damage. An AC-20 deals 20 damage. In Harebrained Schemes BattleTech, it deals 100 damage. So if we go by that, most of the weapons seem to slot in okay. Except they don't, because an AC-10 deals 60 damage, but an AC-5 will deal 45 damage, and then the AC-2 deals 25 damage, making it 14.5 times more effective than the original gun, whereas sort of the standard is 5. So yeah, for an Ultra Autocannon 2 and 5, that's actually going to be gigantic. You're going to get huge dividends off of that in terms of just amount of firepower you're putting out for the weight, because an Ultra Autocannon only weighs 1 more ton than a normal autocannon. So a UAC 2 is going to weigh you 7 tons. A UAC 5 is going to be 9 tons. The UAC 10s and the UAC 20 is just going to be amazing, because for 15 tons you get to do 200 damage in Harebrained Scheme BattleTech. If you've ever played Rogue Tech, the UAC 20 is hilariously effective should you actually manage to get within range of it and avoid the jam. Again, they may end up balancing this out by going full tabletop rule set, where the moment this thing jams, you don't get to use it again. But it's a very interesting addition to the group. I'm not even sure if UAC 20s and 10s were available. I know for a fact that UAC 5s were available in the Star League. They are the first UAC that also gets rediscovered, and they're available in tabletop in a lot of different areas. But yeah, the UX series of weapons, a lot of fun, very interesting. I'm very surprised that they decided they were going to implement them, but that's a really cool inclusion. I imagine they'll be quite rare because, again, the firepower of these things is hilarious. Can you imagine a blackjack with 2 UAC 2s? Can you imagine a blackjack with 3 UAC 2s or 4 UAC 2s? Can you get 4 UAC 2s in a blackjack? Maybe that might, probably not without Rogue Tech. But yeah, you can start doing some pretty hilarious boating with this, because once you start rapid firing autocannons, you're basically saving 6 tons off a second UAC 2. So in order to get the same effectiveness of a normal blackjack, you would just need to drop 2 of your 4 medium lasers, and you've doubled your autocannon firepower. Now, again, granted, that has reduced your firepower by the exact same amount, because losing those 2 medium lasers is the same damage, but you've just gained a massive amount of range on that. So, the implications of having all of these UX is still somewhat staggering. So next on the docket, of course, is going to be one of my favorite series of autocannons, and that's the LBXs. So the LBX autocannons are, well, hilarious. They're shotguns. So an LB2X, LB5X, LB10X, LB20X, again, that scales with what the damage is supposed to be. The way they work in tabletop is an LBX autocannon can fire either a cluster shell or a slug shell. The slug shell operates exactly the same as you would a normal autocannon, and they tend to weigh about the same. If you're using a UAC-10, however, the UAC-10s are a single ton lighter than a normal autocannon, so you're looking at 11 tons compared to 12 tons, at least in tabletop world. So an LB10 autocannon is almost always worth switching over to if you're using just normal autocannon, like on, say, my favorite mech, the Champion. But anyway, so what you can do with this is you fire your normal slug autocannon, you punch a hole through the armor, and then you switch over to a cluster round, and that's your shotgun round. That fires a whole bunch of pellets. And in tabletop, again, we have to keep on sort of comparing back to tabletop. What it does is the number of pellets is equal to the size of the gun. So an LB2 fires 2 shotgun pellets, an LB5 fires 5, LB10 fires 10, and an LB20 fires 20. And what this does is you roll multiple times on the scatter table to figure out where that actually hits. And if it hits in an area that has no armor, you then get to roll to see if you get a critical hit. So if you're suddenly getting up in somebody's face and you have an LB10 autocannon and they have open armor, you switch over to cluster mode and you fire into that hole. Well, there's a really good chance you're about to wreck everything. It's a lot of fun. They're really interesting guns. They're also sort of the standard gun on the Bushwhacker you start with in the MechWarrior 3 campaign, which was sort of my main introduction to BattleTech. I had played MechWarrior 2, but I wasn't really cognizant of how to play MechWarrior 2. But in MechWarrior 3, the Bushwhacker that you start with has an LB autocannon, which is a lot of fun to deal with. I have never seen an implementation of an LBX autocannon in computer form aside from RogueTech properly. And by RogueTech, I also mean other mods that use the LBX, because normally what they end up doing is they say normal autocannons fire normal shells, LB autocannons can only ever fire cluster shells because it makes it easy on ammo management. That way they don't have to introduce a UI element or anything like that, which if you play MechWarrior Online, MechWarrior 4, 3, 2, the LB autocannons always fired a cluster shell only, which really kind of sucks. But I'm hoping, because we've seen in RogueTech that they've implemented very easily without too much difficulty at all, and I imagine if you're hair-raised schemes and you have access to all of the UI controls, it'll be a lot easier to make it even easy to figure out. Yeah, the LB autocannons should be, hopefully, fingers crossed, implemented like RogueTech. So you'll fire a cluster shell, you'll fire a standard slug. Once you punch through the armor, you open up with the cluster, and you snap through everything, and you crit them to absolute death. Now, crits in Harebrained Schemes BattleTech aren't going to be quite as bad, because crits in Harebrained Schemes BattleTech are going to unfortunately be suffering from the simple fact of the matter that there's not a whole heck of a lot to crit. You can't core somebody's engine out. So I'll be interested to see what sort of they do, but you can still blow up weapons and that sort of thing. So if they've got a Gauss rifle and you manage to get an LB autocannon to crit on that, the Gauss rifles explode. Do they explode in normal version? I think they do. In any event, yeah, you can trash jump jets, you can trash heat sinks, you'll be able to trash weapons and any sort of special equipment that they've got. Even without RogueTech bringing in all of the additional stuff for Harebrained Scheme BattleTech, if they have the ability to switch between the two modes, this will be an amazing introduction. I'm super thrilled to see it. Much like the Snub-Nosed PPCs, and really, I'm just thrilled to see all of these weapons. This drastic increase in the number of weapons is just going to be hilariously fun. So LB's a lot of fun, really cool. You should be looking forward to these things because you want to come up with a sawed-off shotgun to somebody's face. Okay, so moving on to the next one, Inferno rounds. So normally Inferno means missiles, because Inferno SRMs are the things that you're normally playing. I believe there's Inferno LRMs. There might be incendiary bullets for machine guns, but essentially what it does is it allows you to deal heat damage. So that ought to be a lot of fun. So in RogueTech, what Inferno SRMs and just Inferno rounds in general do is they add a heat component. They generally take away some damage, so an SRM will take away quite a bit of its damage and instead gain like 5 heat damage that it deals. Now you gotta remember that heat generation in Harebrained Schemes BattleTech is multiplied by about a factor of 3. This is not universal across the board, but 3 is sort of your go-to number, so ideally, if it is this way, and I haven't actually played vanilla in a very long time, actually, the medium laser normally has a heat of 3. In Harebrained Schemes BattleTech, it should be, I believe, a heat of 9, although I believe they also then scaled that up for balance because medium lasers were brokenly, stupidly powerful, and that actually is totally accurate with how medium lasers are in tabletop as well, but generally by a factor of 3. Now, For Inferno rounds, normally in tabletop, what ends up happening is an Inferno ammunition will deal no damage at all. So you've lost your damage component, but it deals 2 heat per hit. So if I fire an SRM-6, if all 6 SRMs actually manage to hit, I can deal 12 damage, which is a lot of heat in tabletop. You have to remember that in tabletop, going up to a heat of 10 is kind of... well, that's your normal internal heatsink limit. In BattleTech, it would be a heat of 30 at that point. And once you start really shoving people over the lines, because tabletop heatsinks only sink 1, and also because everything is also divided by 3, you're starting to deal a lot of heat. This would be the equivalent of 6 heat per missile to hit. So you get 5 SRMs to hit, and now you're managing to make them really, really uncomfortable with all the pain that's about to happen their way. So that'll be very devastatingly powerful once you really stop. Actually, 5, no, 10 times 3. So SRM-2 or SRM-6 would be 6 missiles dealing, 6 per 36 heat. Yeah, 5 of those SRMs is all you need to do in order to just completely overwhelm someone's internal heat sinks. Given the Harebrained Scheme's current generation of heat sinking, that means that 3 SRM-6s can shut down an entire mech. Just right off the bat, you shove them over the heat threshold without even caring. Heat play is possibly going to be insane. Now, there is an optional rule set which says you're only allowed to generate like 4 points of heat per turn or per round, that sort of thing, from external sources. So if somebody walks up to you with flamers and stuff, it becomes a bit of a problem. But I don't think they're going to do that purely because that's not how they implemented normal flamers. So Inferno rounds are going to be incredibly toasty. Normally what you use Infernos for is anti-infantry work, and also to continue to shove mechs that think that they can overheat all the time, like clan mechs. Clan mechs like to sort of ride the heat scale quite high. They have huge heat sinking, but they also have lots of energy weapons. So if you can just start shoving them over the line, it becomes a bit of a problem to them. That's obviously not going to be a problem in vanilla, but this is a fairly powerful increase in firepower right here. Just in terms of being able to control a mech on the battlefield, and the ability to shut down a battle mech so you can sort of take easy improved called shots is going to be quite strong early game. Late game, you have access to called shot mastery, that sort of thing, so it's just easy to just call shot at somebody, take their head clean off, and just do that every single round because you've got all kinds of resolve gaining and that sort of thing. Not a problem at all. However, early game, that becomes a little less reliable. What you can now do is basically throw Inferno SRMs inside all your SRM battle mechs, because SRMs are kind of king early game, and just absolutely roast everybody. Now, if you're one of the people who thinks SRMs are not worth their weight, and actually there was a person who came on the BattleTech Discord, but subreddit recently, and said he didn't understand the point of SRMs compared to medium lasers. This will be an interesting addition to your arsenal, because now you have the ability to shut down a mech in order to come up with other mechs, which will then eventually go for the headshot hunting, which ought to be quite good for obtaining early mechs. All right, on to the next one, Tag. Tag is target acquisition gear. Tag allows you to paint a target and give other people a bonus to hit. In RogueTech, this allows you to basically have like a 5% increase in accuracy. It's not huge, but it's not a big waste of a slot. It goes into a normal support slot, and most of the time support slots fire when you melee, which they're not supposed to in RogueTech, but they do anyway, which is rather hilarious. Tag allows you to accurately scatter Artemis 4 fire control or Artemis 4 missiles. So Artemis 4 hasn't been stated here. I don't know if that will be in the game then, but Tag really kind of works hand in hand with them. Same with the Narc Beacon. Narc Beacon is a very similar concept. It basically fires a little beacon onto a target that blinks for like 3 rounds, and if the enemy fires missiles at you during that time, you scatter better, which can be a fairly decent improvement in firepower. So not a bad thing at all. These both sort of go towards accuracy bonuses, which is not a huge problem in vanilla, but I will be very interested to see what sort of additional play they're going to go into. I imagine they're going to pair with the mortar, which is the next thing on the list, quite well. Mortars are unguided munitions, but that doesn't mean they have to be. So I don't know how they're quite going to implement Tag. I imagine it's going to be something fairly similar to RogueTech, where basically the Tag, if you hit somebody with it, it allows them to be more easily shotted by everybody else, and in the Narc Beacon in the same way. Now, Narc Beacons also can fire in another mode. They can fire a haywire missile, which basically screws with the enemy targeting systems and slows them down and heat generation and everything. That could be a very powerful support system, and I do imagine that these 3 weapon systems could actually work together to create a fairly interesting support mech, something we don't normally see in vanilla BattleTech, mainly because the only other support system is the ECM gear, and the ECM gear is so ridiculously broken it's not even funny. But a very interesting addition to the support setup that will start hungering for support slots compared to your small lasers and machine guns for your melee builds, which is a really good thing. At least I hope that they will. If these are just slottable anywhere, I will be a little bit disappointed just because, well, it takes away from the whole hardpoint economy, which we're kind of looking at in the game. And the last thing, of course, is a mortar. The mortar that they're talking about, there's between size 2, 6, 8, and I think 10 or 12. Basically, it's a mortar that just deals additional damage. It's very similar to an LRM. The advantage to mortars is they can't be shot down by anti-missile systems, which is really cool. Anti-missile systems are not a feature in harebrained schemes of BattleTech, so I don't quite think that's going to be a thing, but mortars are clearly a setup, so we now have indirect fire weapons, especially if you're playing on an urban warfare map where line of sight breaking happens a lot. The ability to just lob over to the next street over in order to bomb people could be pretty helpful. Also, depending on how they implement it, if they give it large AoEs, that kind of thing, that could be really interesting, and I'm looking very much forward to seeing actually how it plays in gameplay. Over here on the right side, we have all the battle mechs. We have, of course, our Flea, 20-ton scout mech. Most famous, I think, for most people would know him from the Wolf Dragoons. It's a Flea 15, so I believe that is the stock variant of it, which is 2 medium lasers. Ooh, actually, no, it can't be, because the stock variant, let me go think about that. Right, I did double check on that. Okay, so the Flea 15 is 2 medium lasers, 2 small lasers, a flamer, and 2 machine guns, and also has an additional ton of armor over the normal Flea. So it's not the normal Flea that people would think of for a bog standard Flea, but this is sort of the early era Flea. We have the VL2 Vulcan, Vulcan's AC2. They're mostly anti-infantry mechs, so flamers, SRMs, that kind of deal, which will probably go together quite nicely with the Inferno rounds. An Assassin 21, which is your bog standard assassin. A Phoenix Hawk 1, which I believe is a large laser, 2 mediums, and small, I think. Rifleman 3N, which is your 60-ton rifleman, 2 AC5s or 2s, 2 large lasers, and 2 medium lasers, and ARC-2R, that's the 4 medium lasers, 2 LRM-20s. The Null is their brand new mech, which is a custom job, and an Annihilator ANH-1A, which we're going to look at in more detail in a little bit. So that's this screen. A lot of information on this screen. This especially is just, oh my god, all the stuff that they put in. Alright, so more video. Hold up! Thumper cannon. So, mortar is not thumper cannon. Thumper cannon is all up artillery. There's 3 tiers of gun type artillery in tabletop BattleTech, and it goes thumper, sniper, long tom. Long tom is your big ol' I'ma launch the biggest, baddest gun at you I possibly can. Think of these as, well, Danzig railguns, or not Danzig rail, but railguns from World War II. Not quite that big, obviously, but they're huge. They're incredibly powerful. They deal a ton of damage on hit, a ton of damage in AoE, and really they're kind of the one that you want. Sniper is sort of the middle ground. It's fairly solid. It goes on a couple of sniper self-propelled artillery vehicles. There is also one mech, the Heliopolis, which is actually being made by someone I know. The Heliopolis is a 70-ton battle mech. It's a ancient battle mech, so super old, primitive, not actually really used anymore, but it had a single sniper cannon. And the thumper cannon is something you can actually fit on a 55-ton mech. The thumper cannon only weighs like 1 ton more than a AC-20, so it's 15 tons compared to 14, and each ton of ammo, this is all tabletop stats by the way, each ton of ammo is 20 shots. So actually in our Mech HQ game, Raza joined it, and Raza's currently driving a thumper equipped hunchback, which we call the thumpback, which is rather hilarious. So that's not a small thing right there. I'm hoping that they don't make this thing integrated to their brand new mech, the Bullshark. The Bullshark is their custom mech job, I think, in the same way that PGI made the Roughneck, the Sunspider, and the Corsair. Now we've seen that Harebrained Schemes has made their own personal custom, the Bullshark, which is equipped with this thumper cannon and a couple other things that we're also going to talk about when we see the picture at the end. But yeah, this is all up artillery. This is big, heavy cannon. I imagine they're going to have it work in the exact same way as the mortar, just with an AoE effect. But this ought to be very interesting. It was a shocking thing that I noticed when it actually came up, because wait a second, this is not small. This is a very big gun right here. And there, of course, is their Bullshark with an archer and an assassin in the background. And And the beauty shot, well, the beauty shot of most of them. So again, their bull shark kind of reminds me a little bit of a Rakshasa. You'll notice the triple barrel autocannons. Those would be UAC 5s. So this is a 95-ton assault mech right here, which, you know, that's pretty rad. More assault mechs are always fun, and, you know, pushing the Banshee out of the slot a little bit. So yeah, these are most certainly ultra autocannons right here. They're triple barrel. We have to go by MechWarrior Online design cues because that's sort of what the entire game is based on. So if you're familiar with MechWarrior Online, UAC 2s and 5s are triple barrel autocannons, even though they're not rotaries, because the rotaries didn't come out at the time. So this is most certainly an ultra autocannon, not a rack. It also has a pair more autocannons. I imagine these are like AC5s or something. 4 medium lasers, I would suppose, and that would be the big old thumper in the back, not just your little old mortar. Then, of course, we have our archer over here, the Vulcan, the Assassin, and the Flea. And the beauty shot of everybody. I'm just going to go back a little bit just so we can see that. So again, Vulcan over here, Archer, our big old Rakshasa looking bull shark. The Rakshasa was basically the inner sphere trying to respond to the Mad Cat / Timberwolf by taking a catapult and giving it arms. The reason why this reminds me is because MechWarrior's design cues often, when it comes to the Timberwolf, will take out the missile ears and make them sort of little shoulder pull-ons for additional lasers. So this is not actually everything. There are 2 other mechs that are coming to the game. This is what's coming as part of Heavy Metal. If you buy Heavy Metal, these are the mechs you're getting. Rifleman's so sexy in the background. I love it. And also Annihilator, just badass. But the other 2 mechs that are coming are the Marauder and the Warhammer, which are 2 mechs that everybody wanted to see, and they are phenomenal. They're 75 and 70-ton mechs, respectively. But yeah, this is coming November 21st, which I am absolutely psyched for. So that's only going to be in about a month and 2 days at this point, so we're looking at really cool gear. However, we do also want to look at other things. So let us now take a look at the mechs that are now coming in more detail. If you're only interested in trailer breakdown, that's going to be it. We're now going to talk about the mechs in a little bit more detail, sort of talk about how they might be used and sort of what they do and how badass they look. In order to do that, we're going to come over to MechWarrior Online. So, right, so a bit of a jump coving there. Right, so this is my personal favorite mech. This is a champion. The camera for the hangar does not do it justice, but yeah, this is the mech that I like to drive. So we're going to go over to the store because I don't actually own all of these mechs, and we're going to start from light to heavy. So first things first, we have the Flea, the harmless little Flea, and you should put that Flea in a box, specifically the Flea 15. So this is sort of what we're looking at over here. It is tiny, it is little, it is baby, little tiny baby mech. I'm going to view in Mech Lab. Okay, just so we can get an idea of what exactly we're looking at, then we'll take a look at the camo specs over here just so we can get a more gorgeous beauty shot of the little guy. Oh, isn't he adorable? And you can also view it. This is what it would look like if you were sort of walking around a Flea. Yeah, this is sort of like a light anti-infantry mech that we're talking about here. As you can see, you've got 2 medium lasers, you've got 2 small lasers, a big old flamer in the middle, and a pair of machine guns. This would be an infantryman's worst nightmare because it's super fast and nimble, which means it'll be hard to hit. And then it's going to barbecue and fire you with machine guns, so not particularly pleasurable in the end. It does have a ton of support weapons on board, just as normal, so this thing will have a bunch of support slots. I imagine you could actually turn this thing to a fairly solid support mech, assuming the tag and the narc beam have become support pieces of equipment. But yeah, this is not something you want to... can I fit? I cannot fit between its legs. So, pro tip, do not try and run between the Flea's legs, you will get stompified. But yeah, so this mech could probably have a whole bunch of support pieces of equipment. If we look back over, and we're going to head back over here to the loadout itself, the medium lasers in the arms and the small lasers in the shoulders. I don't know if they're going to follow, they actually aren't going to follow the normal hardpoint systems normally. There's a whole bunch of weapon systems in MechWarrior Online that are just not available, so standard everything. Standard heat sinks, you're looking at 6 additionals because it has such a little tiny engine that it needs a couple of additionals. Machine gun ammo in the center torso in case you want to be somewhat suicidal, and then we'll have 200 shots, so you're not gonna get out of them. You're gonna have this suffering a lot of problems. Fleas, very fast, very small, very nimble. They are not the sort of thing that you want to sort of get involved with. Think of it like an alternative Locust in game, the way it will actually play out. Like lore-wise, this thing is gonna be a terrifying little monster, but once you actually throw it into the game, the thing that you're gonna realize is it's a Locust, because it's 20 tons and it's super fast. In fact, it might even be faster than the Locust standard. I'm not sure which one would actually come out on top in a foot race, but really, at the end of the day, you're going to use this thing in the exact same way as a Locust, and that's going to be to put it on the side so you can use other mechs. Sorry, but that's the long and the short of it. As much as I love the Flea and think it's a very cool looking design, it simply is not going to be able to compete in a world with, well, every single other battle mech, because the 20-ton range is just too weak with decaying initiative. Because, or not initiative, but decaying evasion. Because if evasion goes down 1 point every single time you get shot at, and you're generally facing between 8 and 12 foes, this thing is just going to be too fragile to actually use, but it's really cool, and it'll be a very interesting early game alternative should you random roll up a little tiny locust. So I really like the Flea. I think the Flea is a lot of fun. Personally, I think it's very cool. A friend of mine, Mitch, over on our Discord, he actually loves driving the Flea. Basically, he equips it with 6 medium pulse lasers, or something like that, and he just goes around, hunting for people's backs, and it's rather hilarious. But yeah, the Flea, tiny mech, 20 tons. It's not gonna sort of change any sort of metas or alter anything in the actual game itself, but it will be a fun little alternative. When you start moving into rogue tech, however, without decaying initiative and the fact that high speed low drag can get you a lot of interesting places, you're already familiar with the Flea because it's already in the game. Super fast, super small. There are versions of this thing equipped with large lasers, which will just be able to zip around at maximum range and blink away at you with an ER large laser, and just for all the pain. The Flea was mostly made popular by the Wolf Dragoons, mainly because they entered into a specific contract in order to actually build these things. They were kind of rare because no one really cared about them, but they came back with more information and thus were able to build out the next generation Flea. Fun fact, there actually is another version of the Flea that's only 15 tons. That was the original version of the Flea, sort of an ultralight mech. However, technically MechWarrior and BattleTech, sort of the weight tonnages for most normal mechs are between 20 and 100 tons. There are exceptions to that, the ultralights, which are between like 5 and 100, or 5 and 15 tons, and the super heavies, which are between anything 105 and 200 tons, which are clearly not in this game. The only super heavy that would actually sort of be able to slip into this time period would be the Matar, which was designed during the American Civil War and is incredibly powerful, but didn't work. It was too gosh darn heavy. It was 110 tons and would later be taken by the clans and reworked into the Stone Rhino, which never actually made it into MechWarrior Online. It makes a lot of people sad. But yeah, the Matar would have been the super heavy. But yeah, the Flea, little tiny mech, again, not going to shake anything up if you're playing vanilla. If you're playing rogue tech, you already know its capabilities. It is fast, it is nimble. You build it like a locust. You can do all kinds of crazy things. And put all kinds of machine guns or flamers on this thing. You stack 6 flamers on a Flea, and you might be able to get right on top of it. You can't really do that in Hairbrained Schemes BattleTech, because once you start to take into account all of the tonnage on this thing, you're looking at 4 tons worth of weapons. 5 tons if you include... Ooh, actually, you might be able to do it. You have just enough tonnage. Ooh. Okay, I take that back. So this thing is going to have a lot of support hardpoints because it's got 2 small lasers and a flamer and 2 machine guns. That's 5 support hardpoints at the very least. So it was possible, if they have 6 hardpoints, you could actually cram in a 6, because you've got 1 flamer right there in the center, and then your 2 smalls cluster into another one, so that's 2. Your 2 machine guns cluster into another one, that's 3. Your 2 medium lasers each weigh a ton, so that's 2 more, that's 5, and then you've got a ton of machine gun ammo for a 6th. You have enough heat to deal, or you have enough space in order to throw a full 36 heat on an opponent, theoretically, unless flamers and vanilla do more, which I'm not super familiar with. Now, there are a couple of more versions of the Flea. I'm not sure if they'll actually be in the game. The one that specifically comes to mind is, are you the one that comes to mind? The Romeo, you have, pop out. Yes, 2 missile hardpoints. So view in Mech Lab, just so we can, yes, he does have this SRM2s. So as you can see, 2 little SRM2 mounts right there. This would actually be really fun if they started implementing the other Flea hardpoints. So this is a hero Flea. This is the Romeo 5000, which is the version that my buddy plays. And as you can see, just a couple of SRM2s. Lots of lost tech in this thing, but it would be interesting to see, because you've got 6 tons available. I mean, you could easily throw 2 SRM4s into a Flea, because that would be 4 tons right there, and now you've got an additional ton left over for ammunition, and you still got another ton. You've got 6 tons worth of pod space in this mech? Yeah, you've got 6 tons worth of space in this mech right here, assuming no additional stuff. So 2 SRM4s and a ton of Inferno ammo, and 2 tons of Inferno ammo would actually get you a pretty interesting way, depending on how much heat Inferno ammunition deals. That could actually be rather remarkably powerful, now that I stop to think of it. I'm not quite certain what they're going to do about that. Alright, so the next one on the list, of course, we move over to the mediums, because only one light to add. Nothing super special. Mediums, please. and that would be the Vulcan. The Vulcan, specifically the Vulcan 2T, which is the bog standard variant. We're going to view the Mech Lab first, and then we'll view the actual stuff. Yes, I understand the sort of ugly Davian yellow off in the corner, but as you can see, this is mostly for anti-infantry work. You've got you've got a machine gun in one arm, you've got a medium laser for normal work, you've got a flamer for more anti-infantry, and you've got an AC2 in case you happen to run into any actual mechs, because, you know, you're going to need a little bit of penetrating power. So this is not exactly the most amazing build ever, but you also have a ton of jump jets. This thing is going to be nimble and maneuverable as all absolute hell. So rather chill. The machine gun ammo is way too much ammo for it, but unfortunately we don't have half tons. The AC2 ammo, again, you're going to have a whole bunch of shots. The MechWarrior Online amounts of ammo are not the same. So it's not exactly going to stun you, but it is a very interesting looking design, and that's kind of the key thing that is actually going to make this thing somewhat popular. Is it just looks really interesting. It's nicknamed the Scarecrow. It's designed mostly as an anti-infantry mech, which is why it has, of course, the flamer and the machine gun, designed to basically hunt down and shoot infantry and jump all over the place. Bit of an urban combat mech when you stop to think about it too, but a very interesting looking design going on. If you happen to be an infantryman looking at it, oh lordy load, that thing's coming. So it's going to basically be very painful and not fun to deal with at all. In terms of actual, you know, harebrained schemes, BattleTech, how is that actually going to affect things? Oh, by the way, you can actually dive between its legs if you need to leap to safety. This mech is going to be mostly cannon fodder. The AC2 is way too heavy for this actual hull itself. You have another 1.5 tons wasted on a machine gun, which you really don't need all that much of. Single medium laser is the only thing that's actually useful for it. So this mech is basically going to be cannon fodder unless they really change the AI a little bit. So the AI is much better at actually using long-range sniping weapons like that AC2. This thing's never actually going to do anything, because if it gets anywhere near you, you're just going to run up to it and punch it in vanilla, because, well, punching ignores evasion, and it doesn't matter if he builds up 6 points of evasion with those jump jets. If you can just run up and punch him in the face, he will break down and cry. Now, what can you do about this mech if you actually just wanted to rip things apart on it and actually, you know, do some effective stuff? Well, first things first, obviously, you tear out that AC2 without a second thought. You are a bit limited according to the MWO stats. You've only got 3 energy hardpoints and no missiles. So you got 3 energy, 3 ballistic. What you could end up doing is trying to cram a large laser on top of that, which actually would not be that hard. So the large laser would fit without any trouble at all. It'll throw it in. Where's your other one? Yeah, right there. Just for now, just so we haven't. You can throw in a large laser really, really easily. You could even throw in a pulse laser, but if you really wanted to go with it, and what you could do to this mech is you could turn it into a large laser sniper by stripping out all of the machine gun ammunition, because you don't really want a machine gun on this mech, and then you just throw in a second large laser. So you've got 2 large lasers, and you still got 1/2 ton for, say, more armor, in case you ever happen to need it, or if you really want to, you can throw in, say, a small laser. The tag is going to be a full ton, so you can't really cram that in, unless you wanted to drop one of your jump jets, and instead throw in a tag, turn it into a nice little fire support vehicle. That way you're sort of supporting everybody, and you have quite a bit of capability. So there is actually 11 tons, well, 10.5 tons of normal tonnage available, and then once you start throwing in the addition of the jump jets itself, which you can of course rip out because you don't necessarily need them. I kind of recommend that you keep them simply because jump jets are a lot of fun. They, especially in vanilla, they allow you to build up a lot of defense and protection. You can actually build up 13.5 tons worth of equipment, which actually, when you stop to think about it, you could cram in, I think anyway, yeah, without too much trouble. You could throw in an Ultra AC5, still have a lot of ammunition space left over. You could even throw in an Ultra AC-10 and you'd have 1/2 ton of ammunition. So yeah, that could end up being really, really fun for you should you decide you want to go in that. What you may want to do though is say an LB-10, and that gives you 2 tons, 1 for cluster, 1 for slug ammunition. It's not as good in my opinion compared to the large laser version, but it will absolutely be very chill. So you can actually do a lot of different things with this. Basically, it doesn't have enough to boat anything, so that kind of encourages you to give you a big gun. It is only a 40-ton mech, so it's actually still lighter than your starting, what's it called, Blackjack. So, but you may be able to get some interesting stuff in there. Let's see. Actually, could I build a Blackjack out of this? No, not quite. I don't quite have the tonnage to throw 2 Ultra AC2s into this thing. But as you can see, there are a lot of options for you should you decide to make it, because it does have an energy in the arm, it does have a ballistic in the arm, and then it has 2 in each side torso. So that doesn't allow you to really boat too hard, but it does encourage you kind of to give yourself one really big type of weapon, say even a snub-nosed PPC, and then a little bit of a smattering of support weapons. So actually, If we wanted to throw in a snub, we could fit in a second snub. If we really wanted a barbecue, we could absolutely go with twin snub-nose PPCs. We'll throw in, what's half a small laser. Show me a small laser. We'll throw that in for our other energy hardpoint, and then we would come over here to not engines. Where is it? It's equipment, miscellaneous, standard heat sinks. Then we throw in an additional heat sink. You're gonna barbecue doing this, but it would be really interesting. And look, you get some really cool appearances. Oh, actually, that makes me want to look, because the important thing to remember is that the ultra autocannons are actually rotaries when they're AC 5s and 2s. So if we want to just have a really cool looking design, and this is sort of half the fun actually at this point, we go to ballistic and we go to a ultra AC 5, we throw on the arm, and you get a rotary autocannon, which looks absolutely gorgeously looking. But yeah, this mech, again, not going to break anything, but it has actually a fairly decent amount of pod space available to it. Also is going to be very, very jumpy. If you're facing it in vanilla, it's not going to be all that hard to take care of. If you play this in BattleTech, it's a 40-tonner. You can mix and match and pull this thing apart all over the place. Again, it doesn't encourage you to boat, but you could throw on a fairly gigantic cannon onto this arm, assuming you wanted to throw in an XL engine. In fact, if you did throw in an XL engine, and we're going to BattleTech do it for just a little bit. We come over here, we tell it we want XL because we don't care about survivability and we're somewhat suicidal. We can't fit in an AC-20 because we're because we're crit space limited. So that, however, I don't believe is going to be as much of a problem in BattleTech, because I think they give you more slots in the arms. Or we could go with a light. Yes, and you can fit in a full-on AC-20 in your shoulder if you want to. And it's a 40-ton mech running around with an AC-20. And you still have tonnage for ammunition for that thing. So yeah, in BattleTech, you're going to be able to do basically anything with it. It's already in the game in BattleTech if you happen to run into it, but now we're actually going to have the official model. Now, if you don't have the expansion packs, you're not going to have this mech anymore in BattleTech. It is going to go away on you, but really, I think most of us are probably going to get the expansion pack. Okay, so next on the docket is everybody's favorite assassin. And of course, it's going to be the Assassin 21, because this is the one that actually shows up in the era. It is a very sleek and nimble looking design. It's kind of a mech that I was a bit surprised wasn't in the game originally, but I suppose there was a lot of work to do. Again, you're looking at not a whole heck of a lot of vanilla firepower here. Single medium laser, LRM-5, SRM-2. Vanilla, this is pretty trash. 7 jump jets. It's probably the most jump jets of any mech that I can think of. This is also one of the fastest mechs you're going to run into. I believe in tabletop it runs at like 913 or something like that. It is blisteringly fast, to say the least, and so it has a huge engine which allows it to cram in a ton of jump jets. Yeah, medium laser in the arm, LRM-5, SRM-2. This is frankly a trash loadout, and you will swap things out. Immediately you'll pull out that LRM-5 because it's 2 tons plus an additional ton of ammo. You pull out the SRM-2, that's another 2 tons of ammo. If you just look at this in pure pod space with the jump jets, you've got 6 tons of space available, and you're looking at a grand total of 2 energy and 4 missile. So what can you do with that? Well, you could throw in a whole bunch of SRM-2s and use Infernos, but what you'll probably end up doing, because this mech is going to be stupid fast anyway, we're talking probably one of the fastest mechs ever, you're basically going to be looking at a locust speed and a 40-ton mech. You have 9.5 tons available for you, which is not a lot because this engine is so huge. You can't swap out this engine in vanilla. In normal or in BattleTech you can, but in vanilla you're stuck with this giant engine. I imagine this mech is not going to be all that popular aside from the looks, just because it does look really cool. I like the look of it, but unfortunately I'm imagining that it's going to fill the exact same space as the Banshee as a mech that you'll use if you have to, because you have 9.5 tons of pod space, which is just abysmal, and you don't have very big slots. You've got 2 energy and 5 missile. 4 missile? 5 missile? How many was it? 4 missile. And an AMS, which I imagine they'll turn into a support slot. You could turn this thing into a super close range brawler if they just endow this thing with 1 billion and 10 support slots, which I think they might. The other thing you can do, snub-nose PPC. When in doubt, snub. You can't carry them in a second one, and unfortunately light PPCs are not available, or otherwise you would do that. But yeah, snub-nose PPC, throw that sucker right on in there, and now you've got a mech that happens to have a snub right here in the corner, which looks very cool with the whole housing thing, and you still have enough tonnage in order to cram all those jump jets back in, should you feel somewhat absurd and insane. I mean, you'll be very nimble and able to deal about 6. It should be full damage, which would be 60 damage, because that's the damage of the other PPCs in the game. You'll be able to deal a ton of damage at close range and be able to sort of soar into the fights. Early game, that won't be so bad, assuming, of course, you can find a Snub-Nose PPC, which actually shouldn't be showing up for another 40 years. But we're going to assume you're going to find a Lost Tech cache, and that'll be sort of how that will work out. Yeah, assuming by MechWarrior Online hardpoints, you're not looking at anything crazy. You're going to have to rely on your missiles a little bit, and for that, you'll throw on SRM4s, because why not? And this would allow you to be very aggressive. You've got 1.5 tons of ammunition, which might be a little bit light, because that is... oh, there's no half tons, right. So you'll throw in... call it an SRM2 on the one. So this will give you an SRM14, which for its tonnage is actually really good. You're looking at 40 tons, able to chuck 14 SRMs at somebody for a short period of time. With this kind of speed, you can get right behind somebody, go call shot center torso, and just blitz on right through them. So that might actually work out really well for you. So you could lean into this missiles quite heavily. In fact, if you're really worried about ammunition, you go in with something like this. Now you've got an SRM 12 pack, which is fairly decent for its size. You're not exactly outsized throwing anything, but clearly you're not going to be able to throw an SRM 24 around. There's just not enough tonnage for that. You can barely do that with a Star League era Griffin. Barely do that with a Star League era Griffin. So it will be an interesting mech. It is a really cool mech. It also is going to have missile hardpoints all over it, which is really interesting if you want to just sort of cram on the SRM2s for, say, Inferno rounds, because, you know, 8 SRMs is, if we go by the heat promulgated according to tabletop conversions over into, that's 8 times 12. Yeah, right? 2 heat times 3, 6, 12 per... 4 of them, 48. Yeah, 48 heat. That's not bad. If you go something like this, however, now you're just absolutely barbecuing everybody, because now you're picking up another 24 heat on top of that. So if you go with 14, you actually have a potential of shutting someone down entirely. Again, you don't get the jump jets on that one, but still, yeah. Again, it's a 40 tonner. It's not going to break the world in vanilla. In Rogue Tech, we've already had access to this for a while. It's a decent mech. It's got some fun hard points to it. Again, not going to end the world, but it is going to be kind of fun. It'll be variety in a tonnage class which is filled with basically the Vindicator and almost nothing else. So enjoy it. I think most of us will. Again, this will probably end up being a starting mech for quite a few people, and you'll probably want to try and modify it really, really quick, because the LRM5 SRM2 combo with a medium laser is just awful, because you have almost no real amount of damage, but you have maneuverability in spades. Could actually turn this thing into sort of an anti-vehicle thing, because the double damage that you deal on melee attacks. Sure, you're only a 40 tonner and only dealing the amount of damage of a 40 tonner, but that might actually make up for it. Alright, next one on the list, another favorite, another unseen mech, the Pahonix Hawk, the Phoenix Hawk. If you don't know the Pahonix Hawk joke, I think it's a Geico insurance? It's an insurance commercial joke. But yeah, so the Pahonix Hawk, the Phoenix Hawk, fairly solid mech. It is 45 tons, but it's got a large laser. It's got a large laser, 2 machine guns, and 2 medium lasers. Oh yeah, I said it had a small laser. It has 2 machine guns instead. So 2 machine guns is a ton. You've got a ton of machine gun ammo in your center torso because you're feeling somewhat suicidal. A large laser and 2 medium lasers. This is a fairly decent mech just off the bat. Although early on, you're going to want to strip those machine guns out because the chance of ammunition explosion in your center torso is just not worth it. And you're going to want to put it in other things. As you see, 6 jump jets, very fast mech. It will fly. And you'll notice that actually in the picture of it over on the heavy metal sort of poster, it is flying, and that's for a reason. Now, the Phoenix Hawk, if we sort of want to go back into sort of a history of what this thing is, the Phoenix Hawk is actually an unseen mech, and that means it comes from Macross. It is one of the variable fighters, and technically this mech should be able to transform into a jet plane. However, that'll be one, the Phoenix Hawk Lamb, which is 50 tons. And 2, the variable fighters in Macross were way more effective than the Lambs in tabletop. However, Hairbrand seems, come on, bring us some Lambs. We almost want some Lambs. Lambs are land air mechs. They have a mech mode, then they have sort of an in-between mode where they're a jet with legs, and then they have a jet mode, which allows them to fly all over the place and be really effective. Super good strategically, not so good tactically on tabletop. But yeah, any mech that's 45 tons with a large laser is going to do fairly solid. So large laser, medium laser, 2 medium lasers, pair of machine gun. So this is not horrible in the amount of firepower, very sort of reminiscent of the Vindicator, which is a PPC, a medium laser, and either a machine gun or a small laser, depending on which version you're actually getting your hands on. So not going to set the world on fire, but it is going to be a viable alternative to the Vindicator that will be much faster than the Vindicator. The Vindicator is very slow. We all know this. It has a fairly small engine. It's not particularly quick, nimble, or able to hack on a whole ton of jump jets. This thing is going to be really, really fast. Also, we'll have 6 jump jets to allow you to just soar all over the place. That kind of gives you an idea of just how fast this thing actually is going to be. And in terms of open pod space for just your bog standard player, I mean, you're looking at quite a bit of room on this thing. Even just if you wanted to keep all of the jump jets, you are still looking at a grand total of 9 tons. So, and that's with 6 jump jets. So once you pull those things off, now you're going to start getting into, well, you're 10 tons once you pull off 2 of them, so if you want any sort of 10-ton builds, but you're actually going to be able to cram 2 snub-nose PPCs on this thing without too much trouble. I mean, the heat problem, of course, is going to absolutely barbecue you, but you have, you know, quite a bit of tonnage. You've got 12 tons. Your hardpoint slots are actually not horrible. It's another 3-3, which, again, very similar to the Vulcan, so you can think of it as a sort of a scaled-up Vulcan on that one. Doesn't get burdened with missile mounts, so you don't have to worry about Infernos. And also, you'll notice the energy mounts are all clustered in the arms. Actually, all of its weapons are clustered in the arms, which means it'll be an accurate mech, because you get that, I think it's like a 5% additional accuracy bonus for being weapons in the arms. And you could do a lot of fun things with that. You could throw in, say, an Ultra Autocannon 5, because why wouldn't you want a rotary autocannon, well, a rotary-looking autocannon, and you have 3 tons of ammunition, or 3 tons for other things. Probably only need a single, if not 2 tons for the ultra autocannon, and throw the rest in jump jets, and now you've got a bouncy boy who can be quite effective. In fact, a mech that we have in our BattleTech game, Howl's Heroes, we call the Shadehawk, because it has this exact loadout. Well, it also has full jump jets and some better armor, but it has a UAC 5 on the arm. Or no, it has a rotary 5, which is a little bit bigger, actually. I can actually show it to you. It would look like that, which you may say, what's the difference? There's not much one. You just kind of have to... Oh, no, because I threw on an alternate. Throw on the rotary, please. Show them the rotary, folks. Yeah, as you can see, a little bit shorter, a little bit stubbier, with a bit more bracing around the barrel. But yeah, so... it'll be fun. This thing, I imagine people will actually use the Phoenix Hawk, not just because of the looks, because it does have a fairly unique and cool look to it, and that is mostly because it was originally a Macross design, but I imagine people can actually get a lot of use out of it. It is an alternate Victor that is a lot, or not Victor, it's an alternate Vindicator, which is a lot faster than the Vindicator, so you can do a lot of interesting things with it. I imagine most people will end up putting jump jets and large lasers onto it. In fact, what I would probably end up doing, just because large lasers after the buff were insanely good, I would just end up throwing on a pair of larges. So I'd do something like, don't need the ER, but it would show up the same thing. I personally would probably do something like this, because I can cram on 4 jump jets onto this thing. Oh no, 3 jump jets onto 4 jump jets onto this thing, and have it something like that. Nice big old pistol right there, and able to fly fairly decently. So this would be fairly solid. You could just plink in behind people. You might have some heat trouble, but again, it's fast enough to be able to run for a couple of turns, so it can sort of get that heat back under control. Really solid mech. I think this one will actually do quite well. So, the next mech, on the other hand, I think is going to change a lot of people's builds. The 60-ton range has not been great, mainly because it's filled mostly with the Dragon and the Quick Draw, which are fairly fast mechs for a 60-tonner, which really kind of reduces the amount of firepower you actually have at your disposal. Well, never fear, the Rifleman is here, and the Rifleman is one of my favorite mechs. It's not my favorite, but it certainly is one of my favorite mechs, to the extent where I used to write really terrible fan fiction back in middle and high school about a Rifleman pilot. But yeah, the Rifleman is badass, and even in its stock configuration isn't all that terrible. You will notice a pair of large lasers and a pair of AC-5s. The AC-5s in Harebrained Schemes BattleTech is really good. It is 45 damage, which is 8 is 40. Yeah, 9 times more effective than normal weapons, which compared to the 5 means you're 4 times more effective. Well, not 4 times, but you're times 4 more than what you would rather be. The AC-5 is fantastic for its bracket and just does a lot of damage at a really good range. Combine that with a pair of large lasers and you're just having a bit of a party. Also has a pair of medium lasers sort of on the shoulder torsos right there. Right on there, and you carry a ton of AC-5 ammo in your center torso because you're feeling just a little bit sad and suicidal. If you are actually having those thoughts, please contact someone. People love you, and you'll be fine. There's a suicide hotline for you. Just shouldn't talk that much about it. This is a breakdown video. We're trying to have fun, so you should have fun. Cheer up. It can't be that bad, if we want to take a phrase from Londo. All right, so this mech I think is going to change things hugely, and the reason is because you have tonnage. So much tonnage. You have 29 tons of pod space. 29 9 tons of pod space. You can do whatever you want with this thing. On a 60-tonner, it is slow. It is not going to be super fast, so I do recommend longer-ish range weapons, but dude, you can do some really crazy builds on this thing if you really want to. You have the tonnage, because you have 29 tons, to upgrade those cannons to a pair of LBXs. And now you're spitting shotgun shells at fairly long range, and you've got 7 tons left over. This is a stock build, people. Well, not this particular variant, but I haven't changed anything on it. This is the normal engine. The only thing I did was I moved the heatsink to the head just so I had a little bit more space on it. This thing's gonna be a monster, because you gotta remember that the Quick Draw and the Dragon don't actually have a whole ton of pod space available. They're really limited because they've got really big engines. This sucker doesn't. This thing is just gonna be cannons galore, which means fire support is here to stay, baby, and you're gonna have all the fun with it. I think that this is going to completely overhaul this 60-ton weight class. Just you watch. In fact, you could even, if you were feeling so inclined, go all the way up to Ultra Autocannon 10s. And you have the weight for it. So if you wanted to have 4 shots of an Ultra Autocannon 10, which is 240 damage out of a 60-ton mech, you can do it. And it's not that hard. But let's say you're even crazier. And again, 60-tonner. I normally take my 60-ton mechs with all kinds of crazy advanced gear in BattleTech, like Endosteel and Ferrofibros, and I put a single Ultra Autocannon on it. I barely cram it in because I have a big engine in it. Well, guess what? Gauss Rifle. Without too much trouble. Oh, and I want to back that Gauss Rifle up with, say, an Ultra AC5. I've got 5 tons for ammunition. I've got damage. I've got cluster. Heck, you know, I'll lean into that. We'll get damage, we'll get cluster, we'll go LB5. So now we've got the shotgun. So we've got a Gauss rifle, which is phenomenal. We combine that with a shotgun, so the Gauss rifle punches a big old hole in the target, and then the shotgun, you set this thing to cluster mode, if cluster mode's available. We don't know that for a fact, but if it's anything like BattleTech, I can't imagine Harebrained Schemes is not going to implement LBX autocannons without having clusters and slugs. And if they don't, then they'll implement it while LBXs are always clusters, so it'll work out anywhere. This mech is going to change the 60-ton weight class. It is absolutely going to make people go from, oh, it's a 60-tonner, it's a Dragon or a Quick Draw, to, oh, it's a 60-tonner, I might get my hands on a Davian Rifleman. And you're going to have all the fun with it. And, you know, it also looks incredibly badass. Let's all be honest with ourselves, the Rifleman is one of the most cool-looking mechs in the entirety of BattleTech. Let's say that I wanted to be crazy. I'm going to take a Ultra Autocannon 5, Ultra Autocannon 5. Oh, I can't fit 2 because I'm taking LBs. So I want to take a Ultra 2. Ultra 2. Oh yeah, I forgot. This is not the one with four slots in the shoulders. But anyway, other things you can do. Maybe you're not feeling in a ballistic mood. Maybe you're feeling like you want to kill him from across the map while you throw on a pair of PPCs. Oh my god, PPCs, they cook so much. I have 15 tons of heat sinks if I want them. If I want them, I can sink 45 heat. By the way, this is actually the original Rifleman. The original Rifleman is a 55-ton mech, and it's packing a pair of PPCs on the shoulders. But yeah, especially with all the new weapons coming, you can do whatever the hell you want with this thing, and you're going to be able to do it effectively. You can, if you want, just throw on a UAC, where is it? Come over here. A UAC 20. You've got the space for it. Oh, and you've still got 15 tons, or 14 tons worth of stuff. If you want, you can throw on 200 damage right here, unless they, you know, nerf it somehow. But this thing takes anything. Personally, I will probably want to lean in a little bit on those UAC 10s, because one, I think it looks really cool, and this was also the version of the Rifleman that my terrible fanfiction character used. He had a pair of UAC 10s on board, and well, he constantly had ammunition problems. But yeah, this thing is badass. 3 tons of UAC 10 ammo. You're essentially running 4 UAC or 4 AC-10s, but UAC ammo comes in larger bins. So you're going to be able to run this thing pretty well, I imagine. So this could be an absolute nightmarish monster for you to have to run into. And if you get your hands on one, this will probably be the anchor of a company, at least until you get into the assault range. This thing, oh, this thing is too beautiful. And the fact that it's finally in-game, and it has a small enough engine, so you will be long-range fire support. So it may actually make more sense to go UAC 5s. And you'll probably lose your medium lasers, because you'll probably want to keep those large lasers as well. But yeah, you just go a pair of UX5s. This is an easy upgrade to do to your mech. You also have an energy for your twin large lasers. And you've got a single ton worth of ammunition, which probably won't actually be enough for these guns. You may have to step down those large lasers, but I mean, this is a hilarious amount of firepower. This is 90 damage per gun, plus another 45 damage per laser, or 40 or 45 damage per laser. I mean, this is the stock version almost. So yeah, the Rifleman is going to change the 60-ton weight class. This, in my opinion, is probably the biggest, baddest thing about the entire update, is just that the Rifleman's coming, and the Rifleman is coming with vengeance. And the big reason why it comes with a vengeance and is going to be so impactful and influential in vanilla is the fact that all of its weapons are on its arms for the accuracy buff, and it's got a small engine on the center torso. So it will be not particularly fast, but it will be insanely gunnable. You can put anything you want on this thing. Everybody's going to have fun with this one. I think I've gushed about this for a little bit too long. I love Riflemans, and I think this is going to do amazingly well. So, yeah, this is why heavy metal is going to change certain weight classes. So next one up, we have the Archer. We're coming in with an ARC-2R Archer battle mech. It is a 70-ton battle mech. We are actually going to be going through every single battle mech on the in tonnage order. And the Archer is pretty boring. The stock version of the Archer is kind of boring. Not bad, boring. Why? Very vanilla. 2 LRM-20s. This is a lot of firepower, don't get me wrong. 2 LRM-20s, 4 medium lasers. Now in tabletop, 2 of these medium lasers shoot backwards. So you've got that going for you. However, there is no backwards firing arc in either MechWarrior Online or Harebrained Schemes BattleTech, and so all of your medium lasers shoot forward. So 4 medium lasers and 2 LRM-20s, that's a fairly decent amount of firepower. That's a catapult right there. And you're a 70-ton command mech. This is Jamie Wolf's personal command mech, by the way. Not this particular one. But Jamie Wolf did, he is the head of the Wolf's Dragoons, which is by far one of the most successful mercenary companies in the entirety of the Inner Sphere. He drove a custom blue-painted Archer, which basically these things are command mechs. Archers are often sort of anchor companies as sort of their leaders, and in fact, I tend to use them as leaders in my Mech HQ game for that very reason. And they're solid, they're reliable. If you look at the hardpoints, we are looking at, and this is not guaranteed by any stretch of the imagination. Harebrained Schemes can do whatever they want with hardpoints, but you'll notice you've got 6 energy, 2 of which are in center torso, so they can only be 1 slot, if you want to use both of them, and 3 missile. Now, of course, you have 2 of the biggest missiles on here, but once we start looking at how much pods... Oh, yeah, you've got 4 tons of reloads for the LRM, so you're going to be fine on that one. So even the vanilla one of these is going to be solid. It'll be a solid... just a solid foe to actually run into, and if you don't want to modify it at all, it'll be pretty good. But if we strip everything off of this thing, I want you to pay a little bit of attention. Yeah, you have 28 tons, and if I can gush on the Rifleman has 29 tons of pod space, and it's 10 tons lighter. You've got 28 tons. You've got a fairly decent number of hardpoints. I can't imagine they won't expand this hardpoint. If they don't give us more versions of the Archer, I can't imagine they won't expand this, because another thing that people might want to do would be to try and throw in a whole bunch of SRMs in these shoulder pylons. Now, it's not actually going to show up on the model because the doors are closed and you can't open them in the mech lab. You could do something like this, and then maybe throw in a pair of large lasers for your big ol' penetrating hit. But the fact that it has so much in terms of just energy, or has 29 tons, means you can actually, should you want to, do that. And now you throw in 8 more tons for your, you throw in 8 more tons for heat sinks to try and take control of that, or exchangers if you can find them. And you've just got a fairly solid large laser spam boat, which can work. I mean, it's a 70-ton heavy, so you are sort of investing quite a bit of tonnage into that. But this thing is going to be, it has enough tonnage to make it boatable with energy weapons. You could, of course, swap over to a pair of LRM-15s, I think would do it, and just a massive medium lasers. So we throw on all of these. Medium lasers don't go in the engine. Throw on all of these. And that, I believe, gives you enough tonnage for a pair of LRM-15s. Yeah. In fact, you could actually ton these up. If you think you have the ammunition for it, you could ton these up, and you only have 2 tons of ammo. But this gives you one heck of a lot of firepower. Now, obviously, you're not max armored on anything, but again, this gives you options. You have the tonnage to get a lot of options. This is going to be a very solid heavy mech. It's not going to blow you away. It's good on fire support just because it has the missile hard points, but none of those missile hard points are in the arms, so you're not going to get any accuracy bonuses on it. However, you could boat medium lasers like this. You could turn this into a large laser boat. You can do a lot of interesting things with energy for the most part. I don't recommend going PPCs just because PPCs kind of suck, but you could, if you wanted, ditch those entirely. And if you really wanted to just turn your mech into sort of the center of the sun, you could do something like that and 10 more heat sinks. And look, you've got PPCs. I don't recommend it. This would turn you into the center of the sun, but it could be interesting what you could do even a little bit better if you want to turn this into a bit of a brawler. And I don't recommend it because it's kind of slow and you're not going to be able to modify it. Snubs. And snubs are cooler than normal PPCs, like temperature-wise, as well as... I'm going to see if I can't put these on the outside. I don't know. As well as having even more heat sinks. Again, this mech is not all that fast, but you can actually turn this thing into basically a Warhammer if you want, minus the machine guns. So archers, solid mechs, very lore popular. Also fairly popular because they're lore popular. Jamie Wolf drives one of these, as I've mentioned several times. These are good solid mechs. You're going to enjoy them quite a bit, I imagine, if you run into them as the enemy, you're going to not enjoy them so much because still, an LRM 40 barrage is still rather significant. It's not LRM carrier levels just yet, but you're getting gosh darn close. And you can modify this to be a couple of fairly interesting things. You could cram on even more missiles if you wanted to. Not many more missiles, because you only have one more slot as per this, but if they expand the number of hard points, which I kind of imagine they will, you could do a lot of interesting things with this. I am sort of hoping that they do the door open animations on this, or they might end up just leaving them as open doors anyway, because these doors here will spring open and down in order to reveal the launchers, and could be a lot of fun. Yeah, not much to say about it other than it's going to be reliable. It's not going to shake anything up because the 70-ton weight class is about to get a lot better. And one of the other things that is also coming in the 70-ton weight class is everybody's favorite Warhammer. And I imagine it's going to be a Warhammer 6R. I don't actually know the specific variant, but I believe the 6R was... actually, no, this is Natasha Kerensky's personal Warhammer. I think, anyway. It is the Black Widows, right? Yeah, it's the Black Widow. I'm not going to look at this video because this is Natasha Kerensky's personal one. Natasha Kerensky was a badass mech pilot, head of the Black Widow company for the Wolf Dragoons. She was incredibly dangerous, would later go on to do more amazing stuff that I want to spoil in this video. In fact, mute yourself for 5 seconds, starting in 3, 2, 1, mute yourself. Natasha Kerensky becomes Khan of Clan Wolf. Anyway, yeah, so rather badass. I imagine we're getting the 6R. This is sort of the bog standard Warhammer. There's nothing crazy on it, aside from the fact that you're bringing just all of the things. You have 2 medium lasers, 2 small lasers, 2 machine guns, an SRM6, and 2 PPCs. So the rules of 2 is sort of king here. So if we want to just look at your stats, 2 ballistics, 6 energy, 1 missile. The 1 missile you could do, like, say, if you wanted to, you could throw in an LRM-20. It's a 70-ton battle mech. Heck, let's pull everything off of this. So the Archer had 29 tons of pod space. How much pod space do you think this is going to have? Now, of course, you could just pause the video and check it out. But if you want to just pull everything off of this mech, you would come off here, medium, small laser. You would come out with quite a bit of tonnage. So we're competing with 29 tons of pod space. And we're looking at, look at that, or 28 tons of pod space. We're looking at 28 tons of pod space. But are we? Oh, what's that? It's a 280 rate of fusion core. Well, that means that all of these heat sinks are extra. And you don't need them. Oh, and I forgot a machine gun ammo. Oh, imagine that. You have 39 tons being used. Right? 35 more tons, 35 tons, so half of 70 is 35. You have 31 tons of pod space. That's a lot of pod space. And you have 6 energy hardpoints and 2 ballistics in case you wanted to do something a little bit crazy, like say, oh, I don't know, let's just throw in a Gauss rifle. You know what? Let's throw in 2 Gauss rifles because you have 31 tons of pod space. If you wanted... Oh, I did not throw in 2 gas rifles. I threw in a ultra autocannon tiny, which you could also do because it also weighs 15 tons. You'll have a single ton of ammo, but still, yeah, if you wanted to, I mean, you could just throw in 2 gas rifles and have a ton of ammo, so that you've got 4 rounds of shooting, but it's possible. If you wanted to be something a little bit more sustainable, what you could do is you could go with, say, autocannon 20s. In fact, LBXs might even be a good way to go. 2 big old shotguns. Why? Because you still have 3 tons of ammunition if you wanted it. Like, this is a lot of tonnage right here. It is not a fast mech. It's a fairly decently well-protected mech, but it's not fast. And they tend to give us a bonus. The heatsink kit, they're going to give us a bonus for that. So, yeah. 31 tons of pod space. If you want to throw in a LRM-20, go ahead. You still got 21 tons of pod space. And also, you know, you get a hilarious looking box on the top of the shoulder. But yeah, the Warhammer is just going to be, if you're fighting it, think the K2 but worse. If you fought the Catapult K2s, which has the twin PPCs, this thing is even more. It's not going to be fast, so it's going to be hanging at long range, firing those PPCs at you again and again and again. Now, of course, it does have this terminally stupid design decision of putting a ton of machine gun ammo in the center torso, so you'll probably explode it, but this thing is going to be obnoxiously difficult to kill. Assuming, of course, you didn't get a penetrating hit on the center torso, again, that will cause it to explode. But this thing is also going to be very well equipped to operate at most ranges. If you hit medium range, the PPCs still work. If you hit short range, now you're bringing in the SRMs and the machine guns to play. Not as powerful as the PPCs, but yeah, once you get your hands on one of these things, the sky's the limit. You can do just about anything you want. Again, no ballistics in the arms, so what you'll probably do is PPCs, but you could throw on, if you really wanted to, just a pair of Lars lasers. Why? Oh, well, because you got 21 tons of pod space left. So, you could do this, and sure, you're gonna barbecue, because you've only got one additional heatsink. But if you wanted to just pack in 6 large lasers, this thing has the tonnage. This thing has the tonnage of some assault mechs, and it's only 70 tons, which puts it in the mid of the heavy bracket. So the Warhammer is going to be phenomenally useful for anything that you want to do with it. You're going to have a lot of fun playing with it. And if they give us more hardpoints, like say ballistics in the arms, which some Warhammers have, you could do even better with it. But it'll have high accuracy PPCs for the arms because of the things that it can, because of the normal PPCs that it comes with. And just look at all this equipment. All this equipment. Now, one caveat, of course, Warhammers are cookers. They barbecue like you wouldn't believe. But these will be phenomenally awesome mechs. You will have a lot of fun with them once you get your hands on them. And this mech, by the way, is coming free. The Warhammer is coming for free as just part of the update. It is not part of heavy metal. It's coming with heavy metal, but it's not part of heavy metal. So while the other most of the other mechs we're talking about, the Warhammer and the next one we're going to talk about, both are free. You get these mechs, which is really awesome because the Warhammer was actually sort of on the list for the Kickstarter for this. So we're getting our hands on these for free without any trouble. So you're going to have a lot of firepower. A lot of firepower. And you've got 29 tons, or 29 tons? 31 tons. 31 tons worth of equipment to throw into this thing. You're going to have so much fun. I guarantee you. The Warhammer is going to be the thing that people are going to hunt down. Not just because, 1, it's a Warhammer, 2, it looks sexy, but 3, because this thing is going to be badass powerful, and it's only 70 tons. And again, one of the reasons why I'm sort of classifying certain mechs as being better than others is because of engines. In harebrained schemes, we can't change structure, we can't change engines, we can't change heatsink types. So when it comes to heatsink types, a mech that has a double heatsink, they basically give you half the tonnage of the heat. Well, they basically give you the tonnage of the heatsinks back, so you could double up the heatsinks if you want. But certain mechs have 2 big engines. Say the Dragon has a fairly huge engine in it for a 60-ton heavy. So that's one of the reasons why the Rifleman is going to stomp on all of it and be incredibly effective, because it has a much smaller engine. So the Warhammer doesn't have a giant engine in it. It has enough to make it go. It moves 4.6 tabletop, which is okay speed. It's not going to win any races, but it's okay. And then you can cram on 31 tons of weapons, which just means blistering amounts of firepower. I think that actually beats out the amount of firepower that a Banshee can put on. So yeah, Warhammer gonna change a little bit of the way that you think of weapon systems. However, someone who's going to be entering the very popular and very powerful 75-ton owned heavy market that the Orion currently has totally cornered because it's amazing, is the Marauder. The Marauder 3R. I can't imagine it's going to be any other Marauder. So the Marauder and the Warhammer share a bit of a lineage in that they are both PPC equipped mechs. They are twin but that's fine. They are twin PPC mechs, 2 medium lasers, and then instead of going for, you know, SRM6s, small laser backups, whatever, they decided that they were going to cram in an AC5, which, you know, that's 8 tons, plus 9 tons for the ammunition. So that's a lot of tonnage back there. Marauders are solid mechs. They're command mechs. They're incredibly popular in universe, out of universe, and they're sexy. And most importantly, and this is a total aside for Rogue Tech, they have a reverse leg skeleton and arms, which means that there are so many mechs that are now going to be in Rogue Tech that will be able to steal the Marauder skeleton because the Marauder is coming for free. Everybody gets Marauders. You're going to have fun with that one, let me tell you. So yeah, the Marauder is an incredibly popular mech. In MechWarrior Online, it's actually really good because of this sort of dog nose shape to it. You can sort of wiggle the front torso and splatter damage all over the place. The tabletop, it doesn't work quite so well. But giant shoulder cannon, huge PPCs. This thing is the sex. It is awesome and was one of the first mechs that got ported into BattleTech from MechWarrior Online and has been there for the longest and will now be replaced by this. So by the way, actually, no, everybody's still going to have it because they're giving this one away for free. Which, again, I believe this was part of the Kickstarter, had to be pulled out because Harmony Gold litigation, bullcrap to deal with the fact that they think that they own BattleTech and they don't, but they do. I will grouse about that later. So we're finally getting the Warhammer and the Marauder with 2 mechs that people really wanted that had to be dropped because of that. But this is a 75-ton heavy. It is the best weight bracket. Not as good as it would be in Rogue Tech purely because you can't modify the engines a lot. But again, we're going to pull everything out so we can take a look at pod space because it's a very similar design. Although it works better at long range than the Warhammer does because the AC5 also is a fairly long range weapon. So you can, you know, throw in the AC5 to blast at maximal range. It's got a standard 300 rated engine as opposed to a 280, but it is 5 tons heavier. And if we pull everything off of this, you'll notice that we are 44 for 75. Wait a second. Do the math. Yeah. So 6 tons brings us to 50, plus another 5 tons for 55, so 11 tons right there, plus another 20, that's 35 tons of pod space. Yes, did I do that math right? Plus 31? Wait, no, 31 tons of pod space. Sorry, my math was wrong. 31 tons of pod space. So very equivalent to the Warhammer, but heavier, which means more armor. It's currently holding more armor than the Warhammer has right now. So it's entering a very popular weight bracket because the Orion is there, and the Orion is phenomenal, and the Orion 1V and the Orion 1... I want to say R, but I think that's wrong. But the Orion's in that space. But you'll notice 4 energy, 3 ballistic. You could do a lot of interesting things. You cram on weapons in the shoulder. Now, this is a little less customizable than the Warhammer. You have the same tonnage, but you only have 2 energies in the arms, which does make you a better energy sniper, but you can't just say cram in 2 big energy, 2 big ballistic, because you only have... all of your ballistics are located in the same side torso. So you start running out of crit slots for once, which is kind of crazy, but you can't actually cram in another Gauss rifle in there. You could cram in, I believe, a pair of ultra... oh, no, you can't. You could cram in a pair of AC-10s? I'm just going to try it out just to see. It's been a while. No, you can't. So you're limited to 5s. I think you can get ultra 5s. So this would kind of be the limit if you wanted to boat guns, just a pair of ultra AC-5s. I believe you can actually cram in triple Ultra AC2 if you want to just start getting a little bit ridiculous with life. Because they are that light. Yeah, there you go. And then you've got 10 tons for ammunition. So if you wanted to go full crazy, you can do something like that. But yeah, the Marauder is same tonnage, better weight, same speed. Or better armor, same speed. So you're looking at something that you're not going to be able to boat quite as easily just because the weapon hardpoints are a little bit more clustered, but your arm hardpoints are phenomenal. So because you've got 31 tons of pod space, if you wanted to do the absolute barbecuer, you could, if you wanted, totally outdo an Awesome, because you have to remember, an Awesome has 1 in each arm and then 1 in the torso, or no, 1 in each torso and 1 in the arm. Well, you can outdo him by putting 4 PPCs in your arms. So yeah, you have 31 tons of pod space. Again, that's more than some assault mechs. It is versatile. It's going to be maneuverable. It's not going to blow you away because the 75-ton bracket is currently already also occupied by the Orion. Design-wise, absolutely gorgeous. I mean, you can't knock it. I mean, compared to the Orion is just hideous. It is just all the ugly. Orion 1K, that's it. Orions are just all the ugly. And let's just sort of compare weights here. AC-10, you know, I can just strip mech. Strip of all equipment. Oh shoot, can't do that. Because it took the engine out of it. So if we wanted to just check the pod space, remember we got 31 tons of pod space on the Marauder. That means it'd be 44. I think we might beat it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. 47 versus 40. You got 3 more tons of the Marauder. So, and you've got basically all of his hard points minus the missile ones. So yeah, the Orion, I take that back. I didn't fully realize that. I had an... So the Orion's actually going to be bodied out by the Marauder. Unless you're building it for missiles, I mean, the Marauder just kicks its butt. Huh. I mean, the 1V still has a role because the 1V has arm-mounted missiles. But yeah, if you've built energy or ballistic-boated Orions, which, you know, energy-boated Orions is going to be a little bit weird, you have been just outplayed entirely by the new and improved Marauder. So yeah, this is actually going to shake up the weight class. This is going to be the go-to 75-ton mech that people are going to be looking for, as long as they're not going for missiles. And there are actually versions of the Marauder that have missile hardpoints. The 5D over here actually has a pair of missile launchers in the shoulder. If they bring us multiple Marauder variants, then this is entirely possible because... Oh no, this has pulse lasers and streaks, but still... I actually own several Marauders because I like them a lot. Design-wise, they're gorgeous. One of the most sexy mechs in the entirety of the game. Not as much as the Rifleman, I don't think, but I do love the reverse leg design. But yeah, this is going to be the new go-to 75-ton mech, and it is available, again, for free for everybody. So the Marauder and the Warhammer coming to everybody soon, and it has enough energy to boat fairly decent-sized energy weapons. Probably could go for... Well, not probably. You could do 4... medium or 4 large lasers, or you could do, say, a big ballistic and mediums to back that up. If you wanted a Gauss rifle in there, an AC-20 in there without too much trouble, you could even back up that AC-20 with, I believe, large lasers, because you've just got tonnage to spare. I mean, you've got 34 tons to spare. 34 tons, you may as well use it. Right, so now on to the second to last mech, because the last mech we're just going to have to talk about sort of in concept, but the last mech that we can talk about sort of in detail, we have, of course, the Annihilator 1A, affectionately known as the Annie. Oh, Annie. The Annie comes with 4 AC-10s. This is incredibly tonnage inefficient, not gonna lie, because AC-10s are not amazing. Well, actually, no, there's 60 damage piece, so 240 tons. But if you have UAC 10s, you can actually make a rifleman that can outdo that. But the AC-10, it's not the best autocannon. LB-10s would be better because you save a ton off of all of these. So you would have 4 more slots. But as you can see, she's a slow boy. The slowest mech in-game, most likely. Aside from maybe the urban mech, and I wouldn't be positive on that. You use this sucker when you want to boat ballistics, and I don't mean machine guns, I mean, as you can see, quad AC-10. And in fact, the quad LB-10, a version of the Annihilator, is actually incredibly popular in MechWarrior Online for an Annihilator build. These things are tanky as all hell. Killing this is not easy. It is not simple. It takes a lot of firepower to try and punch through this sucker because it just keeps coming. And you got to remember that this mech is going to be equipped with could be technically equipped with LB autocannons, because we saw that they're on the screen. Now, maybe that's going to be skirmish only, but this is going to be an absolute nightmare. And I just realized, wow, this is going to be an 1.5 hour long video, but we're going to have fun with it. You may as well have fun with it. This sucker's going to be a nightmare. This could be the new king of the 100-ton bracket. The King Crab is the king of the 100-ton bracket right now because it's got the arm-mounted ballistics. Well, the Annie can do it too, and the Annie doesn't really care. So it's taller. It has a better view vantage point. Yeah, it's got a higher vantage point. And if we pull out all of the stuff from it, just to get an idea, how much pod space are we really talking about? By the way, this sucker has a standard rating 200. The Marauder, which is 25 tons lighter than this thing, had a standard rating 300. So this sucker's gonna be slow. If you're looking like the actual speed here, we're looking at 32.4 kilometers an hour. So this thing's gonna move like 2-3 tiles. It's not gonna get anywhere that it intends to go anytime soon. So if we just pull off all of these heat sinks, every last one of them, you're going to note that we have 66 tons of pod space. Yeah. 66 tons of pod space. I just want to take a moment and compare that to the current king of the assault bracket. Are you the current king of the assault bracket? Is it 000? Yeah, the 000 is it. The current king of the assault bracket is the King Crab. Oh, it isn't. So we'll just go standard. That'll be enough in order to, ooh, because the engine might be different. So it's not the 000, is it the U? Twin AC-20, LRM-15 large laser. I think it's the Quad O. Because that's Artemis, you're a hero, and you're a hero. So yeah, the Quad 0. All right, so this one. So pulled off. Still has a 300 rate of fusion core. So 66 tons on the Annihilator. On this thing, once we get through pulling off everything, twin AC-20s, which is amazing. I mean, that's kind of the go-to where everybody ends up. They go twin AC-20s and so, generally some sort of LRM to knock people over. Lots of additional armor for all the fun stuff. Jump jets are really common, but yeah, this thing has 48, 66, 48. There's a new king of the assault mechs in town, and it is bringing all the heavy metal. Like, there's a reason why this update was named Heavy Metal. This was it. Because just everything about this mech is going to scream firepower. You can do anything you want to this thing, but in general, Quad LB10, probably not a bad idea. If you got UX, go up to the Quad UX 10s, because why not? Because you can pull off the 4 medium lasers, and now you've gone from 240 damage to 480 damage, potentially. Oh yeah, and you've got a metric crap ton of heatsinks. I mean, you need a metric crap ton of heatsinks additionally, because it's a 200 rated engine, and the minimum level for number of heatsinks internal is 250. So yeah, like, you're going to be able to do anything you want in this mech. This is going to be the absolute king of the battlefield. Unless you're building for nothing but missiles, when it comes to direct fire, this is God. And you can boat 5 energy on it if you wanted to. If you felt like it, if you were in the mood for an energy spam build, you can do it. Because, 5 PPCs, that's going to be 35 tons of your 66 tons. Okay, now just throw on 31 tons of heat sinks. You might actually be able to handle the heat at that point. So this thing is going to be able to do it all. It will be it all. Now, a little bit of lore history on this thing. The Annihilator never actually showed up in the Inner Sphere. It was designed at the very end of the American Civil War, right after Kerensky had managed to basically kick in the door. This was going to be the new main frontline assault mech that was going to be king of the battlefield. So this sucker, this was supposed to be it. This was the next generation of Atlas, I suppose you could say. This was going to be the thing that would just absolutely pound everything to dust, and was incredibly slow. It was sort of designed for going up against fortifications because of that. So very slow, but just 66 tons of pod space. I mean, what else are you going to do? Just all the guns is what this thing is. It exists as an all the guns mech, and it also is going to be insanely slow. So you know how slow King Crabs and Atlases are? This thing's going to be like a third slower. So you could put in twin AC-20s. Oh, by the way, did I mention 2 of these arm ballistics are arm ballistics? So 5% increase in accuracy, for why not? Yeah, but this thing was designed before the fall, well, after the fall of the Inner Sphere, I suppose, just before Kerensky takes his entire group and goes off to the back beyond to form the clans. So the Inner Sphere never saw this design. They never built this design. They never heard about the plans for this design. By the time that the Wolf's Dragoons show up just randomly with regiments of battle mechs and say, oh yeah, we have Annihilators. What's an Annihilator? And this comes walking out, the entirety of the Inner Sphere absolutely panicked. This thing was insane. It didn't exist until they brought it back, and nobody had ever seen it before, and it was just a monster of firepower, and will continue to be a monster of firepower. If you can't get your hands on this mech throughout the course of normal gameplay in vanilla, I'm going to be incredibly disappointed. Although I kind of do hope that it might also be just like a reward mech, just for the hell of it. But yeah, this thing is going to be king. If you play multiplayer, and I don't know if assaults show up a lot, but this thing is just direct fire. Nobody's going to be able to beat it. Indirect fire, it doesn't have missiles hardpoints at all. It just doesn't have them. So it's going to suffer if someone can just, long-range missile barrage. But yeah, having the Annie come to play is going to be phenomenal. Now, it is a little bit disappointing because if you play Rogue Tech without any of the expansion packs, you're not going to have the Annihilators anymore, which is a tad sad. But yeah, the Annihilator is going to be the brand new King Assault. There is nobody who boats more firepower than it ever does. And at 100 tons with 66 tons of pod space, I mean, more than half of this mech, 2/3 of this mech is guns. That's not even counting armor. Just guns is 2/3 of this mech. It's going to be amazing. it's going to be the most beautiful amount of firepower you have seen yet. But there is one more mech we have to look at. Alright, ladies and gents, the last mech we have to look at, the new 95-ton Bull Shark, and that would be this bad boy right here. So we now know that the Bull Shark is going to be equipped with a thumper cannon. It also is going to be equipped with a pair of ultra autocannons and normal autocannons. Now, I'm kind of guessing this is going to be a pair of ultra autocannon 5s, backed up with a pair of normal autocannon 5s, 4 medium lasers, and a thumper. That's my guess. I imagine it's not going to be all that fast, but it certainly is going to be faster than the Annihilator. We don't know much about it. It is going to be introducing a brand new system, that being, of course, the indirect fire system when it comes to gun artillery. Mech mortars are now in, and the thumper cannon is also in. I imagine, and I don't know this for a fact, but I do think this will probably be the case, the thumper artillery cannon is going to be integrated as part of the mech. It will not be you won't be able to pull this thing out. And in fact, these actually could be coil lasers instead, because this mech is clearly designed full fire support. Ultra autocannons, fairly long range weapon. Autocannon 5, long range weapon. Thumper, long range weapon. Wouldn't be all that surprised if the new coil weapons are also long range as well, and some form of laser. And that would make sense for this thing to be here as well. That would also be the good place to introduce sort of all the brand new weapon systems. I do think that the coil lasers will be capable to be put on any other mech that you want. I don't imagine they're going to be all that heavy. What I think they're going to do is they might be 1, maybe 2 tons for the medium version. Maybe they'll be really heavy, but I kind of don't think so, because there is a lot of weight on display right here. 16 plus an additional 18 is 30... The 5 plus the weight of the thumper cannon plus the weight of the laser. This is going to have a ton of pod space, clearly, but also, so it's going to be incredibly slow, because we're looking at 35 tons there. If these are medium lasers, it's 39 tons, plus the thumper, which is another 14 tons, or 15 tons, I'm sorry. So, 39 plus 15 is 44, plus at least 2 tons of ammunition. We're looking at probably 44 to 50 tons of pod space. The Annihilator has 66, and is like the big god daddy. So yeah, we're looking at a huge amount of pod space on this thing, if these are the weapons I think they are, and I do think they are. Maybe these might be AC-10s, but I don't think so. Just kind of judging by the bore size, but I can't really tell that for sure. But I imagine it would be a pair of UAC-5s, a pair of AC-5s, 4 coil lasers or medium lasers. Not sure which one. The coil makes sense though, just purely based on the fact that it's a brand new weapon system being introduced in the game, and they like to introduce all the systems sort of on the mechs that they bring to the table, and every other mech that they brought to the table is just going to be pretty bog standard. So yeah, this thing, I imagine the thumper cannon is going to be integrated as part of the mech. It is small enough to fit inside a normal tabletop mech torso if you spill over. So in tabletop, the number of critical slots can actually spill over between the arm and the shoulder, or between the arm and the side torsos, so they can share critical slots. Of course, if you take critical slots on the arm, you can damage a weapon that is mostly in the shoulder. But I do think that this thumper cannon is going to be part of the mech. You're not going to be able to pull it off or do anything with that, or throw it into, say, a hunchback, because that's what we did. It should be fairly interesting, but again, I don't think that it's going to be movable. Which does mean that bull sharks are going to be pretty fun to be able to move around. I also hope they come with like a custom skin that has shark teeth on it, because that would make a whole heck of a lot of sense. But yeah, this is going to be sort of the fire support mech, clearly, and the more I think about it, the more I think these are probably coil lasers, but they could just be mediums. They're clearly not going to be larges. 4 large lasers on this thing with all this heat, that would just barbecue everything. It's probably not going to be available throughout the course of the normal game. I imagine the Bull Shark is only going to be obtainable through a Flashpoint. I think it's going to be your reward mech for it, or you'll be able to use it in one of the Flashpoints. But again, I don't see this being really common. Now, it is going to start showing up in BattleTech, which is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm going to be very interested to see how they implement their artillery system. That's sort of what we want to wrap up here today on, sort of how these new systems are going to affect BattleTech, because that's sort of what we mainly play. So if you came here for the vanilla stuff, thank you for hanging around for an hour and a half as we sort of chatted, rambled, and looked around at all this stuff. It's been a lot of fun. But yeah, so the the new artillery system is going to basically possibly take over for attack ground. I'm not sure if they're going to allow you to attack ground targets, but that may allow for easier UI implementation. That might fix a bunch of things that ended up having to get implemented in BattleTech for their attack ground system. It might become a little bit more, how do I put this, streamlined. It might be a little less difficult to figure out what can attack ground and at what accuracy and where the scatter would end up being. Not sure how Harebrained Schemes intends to do it. However, I do think that that might be a likelihood. The UX are going to be just crazy because the UX are now going to be official support for ultra autocannons, and that means that most of the mechs that had ballistic hardpoints that don't have anything like UX or anything like that are now going to have them. So in terms of appearance-wise, this is going to help out a whole bunch of mechs in BattleTech that, in general, you try and put on a brand new weapon onto it, and you can't because it didn't have a slot available for it. So that'll be really interesting, especially with Phoenix Hawks. Our current mech that we have, the Shadehawk that we have, had a Gauss rifle on it originally, and then we switched it over to a Rack 5. Well, clearly the Racks are going to use ultra autocannon slots if they can, but the Rack 5 and the Gauss rifle were both invisible on the arm because it didn't have enough ballistic slots in that arm to sort of signify that type of weapon system. So I will be very much looking forward to the expansion of that. And also hugely for BattleTech is going to be the new skeletons. Skeletons are going to be gigantic because the skeletons, the Marauder is now going to be basically poached for almost every single clan mech that has the reverse sweep leg, because that's a skeleton that we've needed, a skeleton that has arms and reverse set legs. So that is a huge boon to the BattleTech model makers, or just model makers in general, because now they have a brand new skeleton with a whole bunch of hardpoints all over the place that they'll actually be able to integrate tons of new things. LBX autocannons, I'm hoping they implement them like BattleTech. Again, this might make them a little bit more streamlined because the UI might now support switching over between cluster and slug a little bit more efficiently. The current BattleTech system is doing it, looks fine, it's perfectly serviceable. However, Harebrained Schemes might be able to do even more of it. They might have like 2 ammo counters side by side, and one like goes green when you're selecting that one, the other one goes red, and that sort of thing, back and forth. Not sure how they're going to do it, but I imagine they're going to make it so it's much more obvious how to swap ammo types, and I imagine they'll make a UI element for it as well. Ultra autocannons, again, this now is bringing in official Harebrained Scheme support for multi-fire weapons. Now, if they're going to make them select fire or not, that'll be very interesting. I hope they do. I hope they go the BattleTech approach of setting it up for select fire. But they may end up going their own path. I mean, look at the ECM implementation in Harebrained Schemes. It was not all that great, and it was very different from the way BattleTech did it. I don't think they're going to do that. They may introduce a jamming mechanic to go with the ultra autocannons, and they may set it up so that once you jam, you're done. I don't think BattleTech will follow that, just because I know a lot of people like ultra autocannons, and right now autocannons in BattleTech are in a terrible condition. But if Harebrained Schemes says it, BattleTech might follow. But yeah, the coil lasers, I have no idea what's going to happen with them. That's fascinating. Inferno SRMs, though, is really interesting because that now means that we're having status effect weapons. So you can now pair a status effect with a weapon using part of the official game rather than implementing that entire system on your own. That might help streamline some of the code. And the biggest thing that I'm hopefully looking forward to is just the addition of other things like, what's it called? Optimizations for just the rest of the game. Hopefully Heavy Metal will also bring quite a few optimizations. Fingers crossed, because the game is great. It just struggles a little bit, especially when you start throwing in BattleTech and adding in all the systems on top of it. So I have some hope for that. But yeah, whole bunch of brand new mechs. We have, of course, coming with Heavy Metal itself. This, of course, is the Flea, the Vulcan. So the Flea, little tiny scout mech. The Vulcan, anti-infantry, 40-tonner Assassin, also, well, not really anti-infantry. Super nimble and maneuverable. The 60-ton Rifleman, which just has a ridiculous amount of pod space. This will be the new go-to 60-tonner. Oh yeah, I forgot the 45-ton Phoenix Hawk, which can fly, zip around, and will be fairly solid reliable even when you run into the normal versions. The 70-ton Archer, the 95-ton Bullshark, and the 100-ton Annihilator, which is 66 tons of pod space for any sort of fun that you have in mind. And then, of course, 2 mechs coming for free for everybody who has the game. Even if you don't have the expansion pack, that'll be the Warhammer and the Marauder. The Marauder will be the new go-to 75-tonner because it does out-ton in terms of pod space the Orion, so we should have a whole heck of a lot of fun with that. So that's going to do it for my sort of trailer breakdown and in-depth dive on the mechs of heavy metal. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this style of video. I may do more of these in the future if people really enjoy this. I'm definitely looking forward to heavy metal coming up. Probably won't be switching over from RogueTech to do it, but I may pop in on occasion just to sort of check it out and maybe reinstall RogueTech again to do other things. But yeah, this is looking to be a really interesting update in terms of just mech technology, and like the weapons technology alone would make this a really interesting update. There's a lot of new weapons systems that are coming to the game, if that chart is anything to be viewed by, which I do think it is. But yeah, I have been Derek. If you like what you're seeing, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. If you want to receive notifications every time I do anything on YouTube, make sure you hit that bell button. And please follow us on Twitch. We do Twitch streams of RogueTech, currently running through a clan playthrough. We stream every Wednesday and Saturday, which is today, by the way, at 5 o'clock. I think you'll join us. If you have any questions about heavy metal or anything about this, feel free, drop them in the comments down below. I'll try and answer them to the best I can. Not a super lore guy, but you know, I do enjoy this game, and I will try and help out as best as I can. I'd love to hear from you, and I will see you all in the next episode.